4th of July weekend in America, it is expected to be a busy one on the roads and in the skies. An Olympic favorite disqualified for a positive marijuana test. And Love Hate 8 Independence Day edition. Friday Need to Know. Let's go. Good morning, this is Cheddar's Need to Know podcast for Friday, July 2nd. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Carlo Versano wearing a t-shirt that says father. Hello.
It says number one father, the boss. You like that? Jill, we made it. We made it to the 4th of July. I got to say, I didn't think we would. I didn't know. If you asked me this time last year if we were we being humanity, really, civilization, but we did. We made it, and things are looking good.
And it is expected actually to be the busiest travel period since the pandemic started, something more like a typical Thanksgiving weekend, but with more delays and hassles everywhere because there are staffing shortages and tons of other shortages. Apparently getting a rental car right now next to impossible. TSA and AAA officials telling travelers to plan to, quote, leave early and return late, whether they're flying or driving. Gas prices, by the way, averaging about $3.15 a gallon. It's about $1 higher than this time last year when pretty much no one was going anywhere.
A quick weather update here. A heads up for the southeast. Tropical storm Elsa has formed way out in the Atlantic. It is expected to strengthen into the
name?
Elsa?
Just because I've been watching Frozen so much, it feels like maybe a mom or a dad who's been forced to watch that movie on repeat, maybe they picked that name.
They should just name these things after Disney characters, right? But anyway, Elsa has formed in the Atlantic. It's expected to strengthen into the first hurricane of the season in the Atlantic once it hits the warmer waters of the Caribbean in the next couple days. Florida, heads up here, it's in the extended cone of uncertainty for mid next week. As for the rest of the country, it's going to be hot in the west this weekend. Luckily, not as hot as it has been. Cooler in the Midwest and sort of wet on and off here in the Northeast. So if you're in the West, by the way, please be careful with the fireworks this weekend. You don't want to be the guy that started a wildfire, right?
It's how a lot of the fires actually start.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty good advice. I interviewed Robert Sinclair, the spokesperson for AAA. So I asked him when we might get any relief from these rising gas prices, thinking maybe after the holiday weekend. And he says, don't count on it, because the problem here is not a fuel shortage or anything like that. It's actually just this shortage of truck drivers who bring the fuel to the gas stations. And I know we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast, but it's not going to get better anytime soon, because that is a longer term problem. You can't just hire people right away. And he said, of course, we're about to enter the heart of hurricane season, which could hamper production in the Gulf of Mexico. So the bottom line, he says, expect that prices at the pump will keep going higher, at least for the next few months.
Yeah, and this, by the way, on hurricane season, this is, I believe, is the earliest ever for a E-named storm to form. So it's going to be another one this year.
The country, by the way, not going to reach the White House's goal of having 70% of adults partially vaccinated by the holiday. There is still a bit of promising news, though. After a decline in the vaccination rate, the number of doses per day going back up to about 660,000 people. About 660,000 people got the first shot yesterday. Maybe it's the awareness of the Delta variant pushing more hesitant people to get vaccinated. I also think we might see another surge in vaccinations before kids go back to college, because we are seeing so many schools requiring it for students. So you might see maybe in the beginning of August or at the end of July some college kids getting it who have been waiting. I don't know. It's just a thought.
I think you're probably right. And I think that there's also going to be just more people going. I think after Labor Day, really, more people are going to be going back to the office. More people are going to be traveling. So I do think we may get a little sustained spike, or at least a plateau here, which would be good. Also, for the 11 million Americans who got the Johnson & Johnson shot, some good news here. The company saying yesterday that the shot does protect against the Delta variant. And not only that, but it produces long-lasting immunity that will not require boosters, at least for now. So that shot obviously has had plenty of problems, but 11 million people got it. So this is excellent news for those folks.
On to the other big news, which we've been expecting this week. Former President Trump's real estate business and its longtime CFO have been charged with tax fraud. The first criminal charges against the Trump Organization. Prosecutors in Manhattan allege a sweeping and audacious 15-year scheme in which the company paid senior execs off the books so that they could avoid taxes. The former president himself not charged. Adam Weisselberg, one of the Trump's top business advisors, he is pleading not guilty to charges that he dodged taxes on $1.7 million in perks that were never reported as income.
The company itself also pleading not guilty, saying that this is a political, sort of political witch hunt, and that it should have just been handled in civil court, not criminal court. If your company pays for your apartment and your car and private school for your kids, you have to report that to the IRS, right? Obviously. I mean, that's what's being alleged here, at least.
Right, that's the those are the perks, basically.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So on the one hand, I mean, this is sort of small ball stuff. I mean, like tax fraud at the Trump Organization. Wow, I'm floored. Who would have thought? On the other hand, it's a big deal only because it meant what the prosecutor here, Cy Vance, the DA in New York, what he's trying to do is squeeze Weisselberg, right, and get him to testify against Trump as he faces 15 years in jail under these charges. So this is a big loyalty test for this guy, Weisselberg, who's been sort of a loyal foot soldier for Trump for years, long before his political career took off. I think it's more likely than not that he will take the fall and Trump will say, hey, this guy was the CFO. If there were any crimes committed, that's on him, right? I don't, I'm not the accountant. That said, should there be a trial here, if the Trump Organization goes to trial, that could potentially harm Trump's ability to run in 2024. But then again, maybe not, right? Who knows?
Who knows?
Right.
So a lot of the analysts that I've been listening to seem to think that the CFO will maybe make some type of deal to avoid jail time, because if Trump's not president anymore, like the thinking is like, what's in it for him to be the fall guy? And apparently there is kind of a paper trail that does lead back to Trump, at least his signature on a lot of this stuff. But yeah, I mean, in terms of it does seem, I agree, it does seem kind of small ball when you think about just the bigger issues that January 6th insurrection and things like that. But they've been working on this for a while, so I guess we'll just see, how it shakes out. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3 to uphold 2 Arizona voting laws that restrict how ballots can be cast, saying that those laws don't violate the Voting Rights Act. The decision broke along ideological lines, suggesting that the court will not rule favorably for other challenges to voting restrictions that are going into effect in Republican-controlled state legislatures and around the country.
Yeah, the court has been sort of dismantling the 1965 Voting Rights Act for years now. This is just another step in that process. But it was really sort of a mask-off moment, I think, for the court. I mean, this was a 6-3. This showed the balance of the court, right? There was no John Roberts or Brett Kavanaugh coming out and siding with the liberals here. The Democrats coming out big time against this decision, even Senator Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona saying that this ruling is going to hurt the ability of Arizona residents to vote. The question becomes whether this adds new urgency for Democrats to pass either of these 2 big voting rights bills that have so far not gone anywhere. And even if I don't even know if it matters, because no matter how much urgency they may have, there's not really anything they can do so long as the filibuster's in place.
So Justice Samuel Alito wrote the majority decision here. And he said that the law requires, quote, equal openness to the voting process and, quote, mere inconvenience cannot be enough to demonstrate a violation of the law, which is interesting. It's kind of laying the groundwork for Republicans in terms of what's going to hold and what's not going to hold in terms of any types of changes to voting laws. So, for example, this was about the Supreme Court basically saying that Arizona didn't violate the Voting Rights Act with a rule that they passed in 2016, which allowed that only voters, their family members, or caregivers can collect and deliver a completed ballot to the ballot box. So these are the types of things, like, is it more inconvenient for somebody, and you think about in terms of a lot Democrats would say minority populations are more impacted by this. So the court basically saying, again, inconvenience alone does not mean that the Voting Rights Act is being violated.
Yeah, right. I think the bigger thing is just like what it's telling, what this decision is saying to other, what you said earlier, to other challengers of some of these other rules going into effect, right? Basically saying like, you can come at us with these challenges, but this is telling you where we're going to stand on these.
Let's talk a little bit about the economy. It continues to rebound faster than just about anyone predicted this time last year. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office now estimating that the economy will expand at a rate of 7.4% for the year, which would be the fastest rate since the Reagan administration. The CBO saying it expects the labor market to hit a pre-pandemic level of employment by the middle of next year and then stay there for years, and that the stimulus money that's helping the economy recover that's going to push the deficit over $3 trillion this year. I feel like, am I the only person in America that cares about the deficit? I feel like I'm the only person I hear ever talking about this. Like, nobody else seems, I don't know, maybe ever, like, no lawmakers are really talking about it. I feel like we've forgotten that you actually have to pay for things somehow.
Well, it is fascinating how it was, in the early Obama years, it was a huge talking point, right? The deficit. And now it's like not even Republicans really talk about it anymore. It is really sort of interesting how things change like that, right?
I guess because we haven't felt the negative repercussions of having a crazy deficit. Eventually it comes due, but I don't know. I mean, it feels like we just haven't seen it yet. So I guess that's why the idea is just keep printing money.
Well, I think also in the last year, it's just like we've had so many bigger fish to fry, right? So I think a lot of people are just like, I'll worry about the deficit later. By the way, the stock market has been on absolute fire lately. The S&P notching a record high yesterday as it closed out the first half of 2021. And today's jobs day, jobs report for June out this morning. By the time you're listening to this, it will probably have been printed. I think the estimate, Jill, is 706,000 jobs, according to Dow Jones, added for the month, which I think would be pretty strong for June, because June is usually when hiring starts to wane for the summer.
Yeah, but I mean, given the fact that there's still millions of people unemployed, I personally feel like anything below 1 million is a disappointment, just because there's millions of people who are not working at this point. But no, economists, as you say, are predicting that 700,000 number. I think the expectation now is that it's going to be September when people really start getting back to work. And even when you think about it, because I'm in this office again solo right now, and I just look around Lower Manhattan. When people are working from home, it just has this ripple effect where these businesses that restaurants, delis. I always do my coffee cart test. When I see coffee carts on every corner of New York City, that's when I'll know New York City's back. But I think the thinking is that until people really start getting back to the office in September, we're not going to see a huge gain in terms of jobs. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with that number.
My father, for what it's worth, giving me the report from Midtown yesterday saying that the tourists are actually coming back. He said that it looked better in Midtown Manhattan than it has since COVID started. So that's a good sign for New York, but just for cities trying to get their business districts back on track, right?
You know what? The double-decker tour boats that go around in the Hudson here, right in the harbor, I've seen them full as well with tourists.
Really?
And I was not seeing that even 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah, that's great. That's good news.
But my deli where I get breakfast is still closed. Essen, right here. Essen's closed.
I know, that big deli that we have on the corner, which is gigantic. I heard that it went under. That's a shame.
It says temporarily. It still says, I don't know if it's gone forever. Yeah. I walk by every day. I'm like, please be open. It's the only place you could get breakfast around here. Robinhood has filed to go public in one of the year's most anticipated IPOs, the online trading platform revealing that it has 18 million accounts and $80 billion in customer assets, with the median age of users at 31 years old. The company even squeaked out a profit last year, although it was offset by more than $1 billion in losses related to the GameStop short squeeze.
Robinhood facing something in the neighborhood of 50 class action lawsuits related to its role in that short squeeze, not to mention growing scrutiny from regulators. As this S1 filing came out yesterday, the company fined $70 million by regulators at FINRA, just as it was filing to go public. So that sort of tells you what you need to know. I mean, I wouldn't touch the stock with a 10-foot pole. It will trade on NASDAQ under the ticker HOOD. And by the way, one interesting thing from the just from this filing yesterday, Dogecoin made up more than a third of all Robinhood's crypto trading revenues in the last quarter. The company even said that a lot of its business depends on customer interest in Dogecoin. Which
in
you remember
Dogecoin
is that,
specifically?
and specifically
so
Dogecoin. Yeah, which I mean, again, if you stake your business plan on one of these like meme-based fake currencies, I don't know, that doesn't strike me as a good idea.
Crypto transactions, that was 17% of Robinhood's total revenue, at least in Q1. So, but I didn't see the breakdown. Yeah, look, there was a headline, a real headline yesterday that Dogecoin, the soaring, because Elon Musk put out a tweet where he did Baby Shark, but instead of Baby Shark, the lyrics, he wrote Baby Doge, like he basically changed the lyrics from Baby Shark to Baby Doge and tweeted it, and that sent the price of Dogecoin up. That is a headline that you would think was in The Onion a year ago, for real. Like Tesla CEO.
Yeah.
Changes the lyrics of Baby Shark to Baby Doge, and this made-up cryptocurrency now rising. I feel like I can't. When I saw that in our teleprompter, I was like, I can't believe this is a real script.
I know. Yeah. What bubble, right?
But according to Morning Brew, interestingly about Robinhood, Robinhood is their IPO. You could buy into it on the Robinhood app. So it's a pretty unusual move, but they're putting aside 20 to 35% of their Class A stock for Robinhood users, as that stock that would normally be available to bankers.
Yeah, I mean, I there's a lot about that company that sort of bothers me, but their general mission, which is making the stock market more open to retail investors, like I'm all for that. That's good.
Okay, file this under shocking. The American sprinter Shikari Richardson may be disqualified from the Olympics after testing positive for marijuana. Richardson won the women's 100-meter race at the track and field trials last month. She was a favorite to medal in the 100-meter race in Tokyo. So her suspension could be over by the time that the Olympics actually start, but it invalidates her win in the trials, meaning that she wouldn't be able to compete in an individual race, but she could still compete in relays. She's actually going to be booked on the Today Show this morning to address the whole issue with the drug test. So we'll see what comes out of it. But that's such a shame. It's so disappointing.
You have got to be kidding me. I saw this when I woke up this morning. I was like, are you freaking joking? Marijuana? How does marijuana in any way count as a performance-enhancing drug? If anything, it's the opposite, right? I mean, not to mention that it's legal in the state where she was tested, Oregon.
Well, that's
amazing.
That's the social media reaction has been basically what you just said, which is like, if she's still winning races and she's smoking marijuana,
give this woman a medal
all the
right
more
now.
Power to her.
Really.
And finally, when Jeff Bezos launches himself into suborbital space later this month on one of the company's rockets, he's going to be joined by his brother, a mystery guest who paid $28 million for a seat, and Wally Funk. She is the pioneering female aviator. She's 82 years old, so she's going to become the oldest person to ever fly to space. Bezos posting a video showing him telling Funk that she'd been chosen for the trip. Her history is pretty fascinating.
It is. Very quickly, she's been trying to do this since the 1960s. She was a member of a group of women that was known as the Mercury 13. It was a private space mission during like the height of the space race. They underwent all of the same astronaut training that NASA puts their astronauts through, right? All of the rigorous mental and physical tests. She never made it to orbit. None of them did, because the program was abruptly canceled at the last minute. So now she will get her chance. Pretty cool, right?
That news also coming as Virgin Galactic announcing that Richard Branson will beat Bezos to space. Virgin plans to fly its first commercial flight on July 11th, 9 days before Bezos takes to the launch pad.
I mean, oh my Lord. Blue Origin, by the way, this pissing test between these guys is like too much,
it's a
right?
Very polite way to put it.
It's like ridiculous. Blue Origin telling the New York Times this morning that it actually doesn't count because it won't count because Branson is not flying above the Kármán line, which is the widely recognized boundary that sets where space begins. That line is about 62 miles above sea level. NASA, for what it's worth, says space starts at about 50 miles above sea level, and Branson will go somewhere in the 55-mile range, I think. Bezos is going to go a few miles higher, which is why Blue Origin says that this won't count. I mean, the whole thing is so freaking ridiculous. I don't even know what else to say, right?
I mean, just wait for Blue Origin to basically announce that it's moving up their timeline to July 10th.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's just so
And you know
crazy.
what? And say what you will about Elon Musk, but while these guys are doing this ridiculous thing, he's sending actual payloads of satellites, not even into suborbital space, but into actual orbit.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
and he basically came up with the idea to have these reusable rockets.
Yeah. They just did one the other day, and they put the video. If you've ever watched the video of these SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets coming back on the launch pad, it is one of the most unbelievable engineering feats you'll ever see. It's unbelievable.
From the guy who's tweeting baby Doge, it comes like the greatest thing ever. Yeah. All right, let's do a little Love Hate 8 4th of July edition. One thing that we love, when you live somewhere where you can catch the local fireworks from your window, backyard, all without the crowds. This reminds me of my Manhattan days when I had a balcony and used to go out. And I didn't have the best view, but like if you leaned over and prayed for your life, you could actually see them.
As long as you saw something, that always counts. The fireworks, by the way, are already starting out here in Brooklyn, which is great when you have a infant daughter who doesn't stay asleep. It's nice when you get that constant barrage of fireworks out the window.
Or a dog, by the way.
Yeah, right. Little Trestle, I don't think he likes the fireworks, does he?
No, I know, and it's tough. And wait, then it would be the worst was like right when Alex would fall asleep, then the barking starts.
Yeah, right.
Luckily, she's able to tune him out.
One thing that we hate, the first sign of the booze drying up at the barbecue, you know what I'm talking about? You know that moment? You know that moment when you're at a party and it becomes clear that it's running out of alcohol? It's like it spreads through the crowd silently somehow. You know what I'm talking about? It's like, oh, the keg is kicked, the cooler's empty, the bartender says they're low. It's like, who's making the beer run? It ain't me. That ship has sailed a long time ago.
And one thing that we ate, bomb pops, aka firecracker popsicles. Love those. Those actually used to be my go-to from the ice cream truck.
The ice cream, yeah, those are good. You get the red and the blue food coloring on your tongue.
Yeah.
I'm an ice cream truck. I go with the soft serve always. But if I was going to go with a popsicle, I would go with one of these or a creamsicle, I think.
All right. Everybody have a really nice long holiday weekend. That is what you need to know for Friday, July 2nd.
Be safe, everyone. We'll see you on Tuesday.